8 Fairies, flowing in the market alley. Introduction. After the Tiangong Coup, blood flowed into the harem. The 8 Fairies and 6 Fairies managed to escape from the palace and wandered into the market, becoming the Lady of Liancheng State, a scholar, while the 6 Fairies became his sister-in-law. In order to eradicate the root cause, the son of the traitor Li Tianwang, Li Erwang, was ordered by his father to search for the 6 Fairies, 8 Fairies, and Sun Wengong of the Ministry of Revenue in the marketplace. Chapter 1. Tiangong Coup. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Mother, you finally woke up. Mother, you don't know, you've been in a coma for 3 days and scared to death. Kai Langzhong in Fugue Lane gave you a pulse and said you won't live tomorrow. It seems that Kai Langzhong is also full of feces. Mother, how do you feel now? Are you still dizzy? Are you weak in limbs? Are you sore in the back? A young man wearing coarse cloth clothes was lying on the bed, tightly gripping the slender and tender hands of the 8 immortals with his right hand. Her face was pale, her hair was disheveled, and her shirt slipped slightly, revealing her thin and fair shoulders. The 8 immortals instinctively shrank her body, pulled her shirt with her left hand, covered her bare shoulders, and slightly opened her eyes. Her slender eyelashes curled up, and her dry lips opened slightly, saying, Me, where am I? Mother, you are at home in the Fugue alley. 3 days ago, you went to the well in the courtyard to wash clothes. As it had just rained, the edge of the well was wet and slippery. You came out of the house with a wooden basin, and just arrived at the well, your feet slipped, your body tilted, and you fell heavily. The wooden basin fell to the ground with a loud bang, and the clothes in the basin spilled out. Your head hit the well heavily, causing a pool of dirty blood to flow. I was just coming back from outside when I saw this thrilling scene. I was so scared that my face turned white on the spot. I rushed over and screamed with heart-wrenching cries, Madam, what's wrong with you? You immediately fainted. I quickly picked you up from the ground, gasped for breath, and stumbled and carried you into the room. I passed through the living room and entered the room, gently placing you on the bed. I called out with heart-wrenching cries, Madam, wake up quickly. If you have 3 long and 2 short things, how can you let me live? We have only been married for less than a month, madam. Madam, wake up quickly. I shouted for a while, but you had no response. It's not a good idea to shout like this again. So I let go of you, feeling anxious and sorrowful as I left the room, walked through the dim living room, and quickly walked out of the palm-sized courtyard. Feeling anxious and sorrowful, I came outside, bypassing several households and walls, and knocked on the door of Kai Langzhong's house. Feeling anxious and sorrowful, I cried to Kai Langzhong about your fainting experience. Kai Langzhong immediately put down the other patients in the house, gave careful advice to the disciples around him, and followed me to the house. Upon hearing these inexplicable words, the 8 immortals couldn't help but tremble. Her eyes immediately widened and her eyebrows perked up, and the corners of her mouth twitched nervously. Her face showed a complex expression of surprise, confusion, unease, and excitement. After a moment, the 8 immortals calmed down their complex emotions and asked, Who are you? How did I become your wife? Where did that start? Madam, did this fall fool you? Even I don't know who it is. I am your husband, named Lian Qingzhou. I am 21 years old this year, and you are the eldest daughter of Fu Cheng, an old man in the alley. Your family has been making tofu for generations. Due to your beautiful appearance, double eyelids, small waist, slender stature, fair skin, nicknamed White Tofu, when I was 16 years old, I saw you creaking and carrying a burden, selling tofu along the alley. Your voice was crisp and delicate. Buy tofu, 2 yuan of big tofu, white and tender and white big tofu. At that time, I fell in love with you and was deeply fascinated by you. When I thought of you, I couldn't think of tea and food, and couldn't sleep for a long time. It's been 5 years now, and life is 5 years younger. Time doesn't disappoint those who are infatuated. Finally, in Fugue Lane, many competitors stood out and chased you, holding you back to the beautiful woman. I thought you would end up with a single stick, grow old, and love you for a lifetime. However, I didn't expect that when you fell, you were so foolish that I didn't even know who you were. My life is even harder than Huanglian's. Liancheng almost cried bitterly. The 8 immortals became even more confused and confused, their eyes widened wider, rounder, and more confused. She hesitated and asked, are you the husband? Are you my man? Do you know who I am? Liancheng wiped the tears off his face with his hand, calmed his sorrowful and excited emotions for a moment, and bit his thick lower lip word by word, saying, "You are Fu Cheng's eldest daughter, named Fu Yingying, nicknamed White Tofu." "You're talking nonsense, what kind of white tofu and black tofu?" "I'm the youngest daughter of the Jade Emperor, the 8th eldest, and I'm called the 8 Immortals." The 8 Immortals said, ignoring her weakness, struggling to get up from the bed, shaking her hands and pointing at Liancheng's face, spat. Due to their proximity, they almost pressed their faces against each other, and saliva dripped down Liancheng's face like a drizzle of stars. A few seeds of fear landed on his lips, and Liancheng instinctively licked them. The taste was not bad, as if there was a hint of immortal energy. "Are you the 8 Immortals, the youngest daughter of the Jade Emperor?" Liancheng opened his mouth and asked with disbelief. "Yes, I am the youngest daughter of the Jade Emperor," said the 8 Immortals seriously. "Then I'm still the youngest son of 9,000 years old, 9 young master," Liancheng couldn't help but joke. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. What I said is all true. The 8 Immortals became anxious, tears rolling in her eyes. "Madam, can I say it's fake?" Liancheng changed his sad mood and then chuckled. "Big brother, what I'm saying is true. The story goes like this. Father the Emperor carried out reforms in the Heavenly Palace, touching the interests of ministers, leading to a coup. Elderly officials such as Erlang Shen, Taishang Laojun, Tua Tian Li Tianwang, Neza, and others rebelled and stormed into the harem, placing Father the Emperor under house arrest. Later, they brutally burned, killed, and looted the harem. My 7 sisters were raped by the soldiers, some died with hatred and humiliation, and some jumped out of the immortal realm, wandering to unknown places. I was caught by Erlangshen's eldest son crossing his legs, Erlangshen. Cross-legged, he said, as long as I submit to her and listen to him, not only will your father be spared from death, but I may also become a wife or consort, preserving my immortality. I spat viciously at him, traitor, dream it. Crossing my legs, I suddenly became angry and embarrassed. I immediately rushed forward in anger and raised my hand, slapping me fiercely. My face immediately turned red, white, and purple, and I cursed fiercely, saying, "Do you still look like the 8 Immortals like you? You're just a prostitute, a slut. I see you're toasting, not eating, and not being punished. Where are you coming from? Take her away." After saying that, a few ferocious heavenly soldiers came. My face was gray-white, and I let out a scream. "Don't come over, don't come over. Whoever dares to come over, I'll shake my hands from my arms." I took out a pair of scissors and shook them in my hand a few times. A few cold lights flashed past, and the scissors were parked quietly in my throat. Several heavenly soldiers were so scared that they took a few steps back, not knowing what to do for a moment. They crossed their legs and tightened their thick and short eyebrows, sneering. "All right, you go stab me. If you stab me to death, it's just an extra corpse. Anyway, this harem has already flowed with blood, and I don't care if you have another corpse." Chapter 2. Lang's Legs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After crossing his legs, he took the opportunity to pounce on me. When I was stunned, He quickly snatched the scissors from my hand like lightning and threw them with a bang on the marble-covered ground. There were blood stains on the ground, and the entire harem was filled with a strong smell of blood. With a flick of his lips, he said coldly, "Do you really want to die? You little bitch." I said without fear. Under the cover of the nest, there are no big brothers, second brothers, and they all died one by one. Big sister, second sister, and they all. What's the point of my life? I crossed my legs and opened my mouth, revealing my white teeth. He smiled and said, "Okay, since you want to die, I can't help but fulfill you. Someone, imprison this little slut and let her slowly torture to death." The 8 fairies glared angrily and gritted their teeth, saying, "Father treated you well, why do you still want to rebel? Rebel, you will sooner or later suffer retribution." Retribution. Who exactly receives retribution? You should open your eyes and see how many concubines, palace maids, eunuchs, empresses, first princes, second princes. Jade Emperor, no, he's a dog thief, even to the highly respected Empress Dowager, he has obediently become a prisoner. Ha Ba Go, who do you think has received retribution for this? You are stubborn and stubborn even when you die, believe it or not, you have angered me. I stripped off your clothes and let you parade naked in public. Cross your legs and spit at me fiercely, saying. After hearing these words, my heart couldn't help but shiver. Crossing my legs, I quickly caught this subtle change and snorted. I knew that death was fearless for you, but shame and humiliation were more terrifying than death. I spat at him hard. If you really did this, then you wouldn't be the son of the Erlang god. Crossing my legs, I quickly asked, "What am I?" I looked disdainfully and said, "Then you're the Erlang ghost, Erlang dog." "Madam, why do I feel like listening to mythological stories?" Liancheng suddenly said with a puzzled expression. "Big brother, please don't call me Nyangzi. I am the youngest daughter of the Jade Emperor, also known as the 8 Immortals. This is not a myth, but a bloody reality. My father is under house arrest, and my elder brothers and sisters have all died, injured, and some of them are missing. Why don't you believe me? Big brother, every word I say is true. If it's half a day off, it's like thunder and lightning, it's hard to die. Madam, how can I trust you? Why do you still call me Nyangzi? I am the 8 Immortals. Big brother, wake up, right?" The 8 Immortals' eyes pierced Liancheng's face like cones. "You said you're not my wife, you said you're your Jade Emperor's daughter, the 8 Immortals' daughter, you said big sister, big brother, dead, injured, what do you use to prove it? Empty words without evidence." Liancheng's thick lips wriggled a few times and retorted. "I have immortal aura on me, which is my only proof," said the 8 Immortals, raising her eyebrows. "This is not much proof." "Why?" "Because every girl has a fairy-like aura on her body, are you an exception?" Liancheng said here, paused for a moment, and then said, "Madam, don't think too much. I know this fall knocked you unconscious, and you lost your original memory, that's why you are so divine." Liancheng waved his hands and analyzed carefully. Big brother, I'm really not your wife. Listen to me." The 8 fairies quickly explained, shifting their cone-shaped gaze from Liancheng's face. Liancheng went out and poured a cup of tea. He gently placed it on the top of the bed cabinet, and the tea was steaming hot. He said, "Madam, take a sip of tea first to moisten your throat. You continue to make up, and I will continue to listen. Big brother, since you don't believe it, do I still need to say it?" The 8 Immortals tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Don't call me big brother. I am your husband, and you are the woman I married openly. Whether you admit it or not, this is an ironclad fact," Liancheng said seriously. "Iron facts, then you can use iron evidence to prove it. Otherwise, if you kill me, I won't admit that I am your wife." The 8 Immortals said decisively. Okay, this afternoon I'll go pay for your father, your brother pays for the cow, your brother pays for the horse, your sister pays for the shoe, and there are also mothers Lu Mei, matchmaker Zhang, matchmaker Li, and matchmaker Wang. These are the 3 matchmakers, and there are also 6 certificates. Your 3 uncles and 3 uncles, together they make up 6 certificates. Your family and my family have 8 wedding banquets, all of which are silver provided by my family. The 7 or 8 aunties, the 7 or 8 aunties, the 7 or 8 aunties who carry the sedan chair, blow the lock, the dowry, the snatcher of the wedding money, and the firecracker, can all testify. If they are all called over, they may not be able to fit in the entire yard. The mouth of Liancheng Prefecture is like a flowing river, talking endlessly. The 8 immortals were immediately dumbfounded. Lian Qingzhou easily presented so many witnesses to prove it. What did she use to refute him? Madam, stop talking. If you're too lonely to cook, I'll find a little girl outside to serve you and let you taste the taste of being spoiled too. Lian Qingzhou said very generously. Lian Qingzhou is a scholar, and his father runs an inn in the town. Although his life is not prosperous, he is still more than enough to hire a little maid at home. It seems that this lady is determined. How can the 8 immortals be willing? What can we do if we are unwilling? A phoenix with shedding feathers is not as good as a chicken. Alright, madam, stop daydreaming. I'll go to the street right away and find a girl to serve you. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. After saying this, I left the room. The 8 fairies couldn't help but wonder how she suddenly became Fu Yingying, the eldest daughter of Fu Cheng, nicknamed White Tofu, and the wife of Liancheng Prefecture. Is this competition a blessing or a curse? Is it fate or sin? The 8 fairies sat helplessly on the edge of the bed, rubbing her swollen temples. She felt extremely frustrated and hopeless, shaking her hands to hold the tea cup on the head table, sipping the tea carefully, and then gently putting it down. Start looking at the new house in confusion. A double bed, several sturdy wooden boxes and cabinets, a spacious dressing table, on which scattered boxes of rouge and pollen, wooden combs, headbands, handkerchiefs, butterfly clips, silver jewelry, etc., are placed. There is a rectangular dark red footboard under the bed, with a pair of red cloth shoes embroidered with mandarin ducks playing in the water. The wall is also pasted with the words, Big Red Double Happiness. She slowly withdrew her gaze, and a voice exploded in her mind. Little slut, go die. It's a voice of anger and embarrassment when crossing legs. That night, he crossed his legs and escorted her back to the mansion. Crossing her legs, she asked the servant to take a potion under the tea. After drinking it, the 8 immortals fell into a daze and fell asleep on the spot. When the 8 immortals woke up, they found themselves lying naked on the bed. She immediately understood that she had been mistreated by this beast. The 8 immortals took out scissors from under the pillow and coldly glanced at the sleeping side, crossing her legs, and suddenly thrust them towards the lower body of Erlangshen. A heart-wrenching pain made my legs jump out of bed, and my lower body was filled with blood. I gritted my teeth, suppressed the pain, and stumbled out of bed, shaking my hands to remove the sword hanging from the wall. I slowly turned around and walked to the bedside, raised my sword, and suddenly widened my eyes, shouting, "Little bitch, you go to die." Chapter 3. Fox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 4.6 Fairy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 5. 8 The Fairy Runs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 6th fairy followed the butterfly with a bright gaze and asked curiously, "Big brother, what is that?" "Butterflies, don't you even know about butterflies? They are really raised in a deep boudoir and people don't know them." Lian Qingzhou smiled. "Big brother, what's in the heavenly palace? If you don't tell me, I really don't know if this is a butterfly, said the sixth fairy with a bewildered expression on her face. The butterfly saw the two people discussing it with each other, and its anger flew away. The six fairies asked again, what is the snow-white and snow-white corner of the courtyard wall? This is gardenia, haven't you seen it again? Yes, big brother, I really haven't seen such beautiful flowers in the heavenly palace. Big brother, I know you're getting impatient. The six fairies slowly lowered their heads and whispered. I'm not impatient, am I? You're lying, the expression on your face clearly indicates impatience, said the sixth fairy, slowly lifting her head. No, little girl, you're being too worried, Liancheng pretended to be happy, with a very happy expression on his face. Okay, I believe you, he said again. Big brother, can you pick one for me? My eyes were filled with anticipation. Sure, Liancheng said, quickly walked to the corner of the courtyard wall, bent down, quickly picked a flower, turned around and walked to the side of the six fairies, handing it to her. The sixth fairy was very excited and took the gardenia flower from Liancheng's hand. She gently placed it on the tip of her nose and sniffed it, saying excitedly, it smells so good. Can you leave now, little girl? Liancheng asked tentatively. Okay, big brother, let's go. The six fairies seemed reluctant to say. The two of them left the yard, one in front and one behind, and came outside. The street is bustling with people coming and going. Liancheng slowed down and glanced at the bustling street, asking, little girl, are you really the six fairies? Big brother, why should I lie to you? I'm really the sixth fairy. The sixth fairy almost swore and swore. To be honest, I'm a bit convinced now, Liancheng and the six immortals walked shoulder to shoulder. Big brother, you were at Anchor's house just now and still didn't believe it. Why do you believe it again now? The sixth fairy asked in surprise, her eyes wide and round. Just now, when you saw butterflies and gardenias in the courtyard, you didn't know what they were. Unless they were celestial beings, only celestial beings knew nothing about the human world. Liancheng grinned and explained. Yes, I was originally a fairy. I am the sixth daughter of the Jade Emperor, big brother. You always have a skeptical attitude, and now you finally have a bit of faith. The six fairies smiled with a charming expression. Liancheng couldn't help but take a second glance. The six fairies saw his eyes flickering with thieves, and her face turned slightly red. Big brother, since it's still early, why not take a stroll around? I haven't taken a stroll yet, I wonder what it's like to go shopping. The six fairies are half suggesting and half longing. Little girl, aren't you constantly eager to meet your so-called 8 sisters and 8 fairies? Why aren't you in a hurry now? Liancheng asked with a smile. Big brother, if your wife is really my 8th sister who has been reborn or crossed over, and she is at home and can't run, why should I be in a hurry to see her? The sixth fairy placed her hands flat under her belly. This statement actually reminds Liancheng. Liancheng tightened his thick and short eyebrows and said anxiously, if the Empress really is the incarnation of the 8 immortals, she will definitely take advantage of me not to run away. Little girl, I suddenly have an ominous feeling. Forget it this time. Next time when I have time, I will take you shopping. Big brother, what ominous premonition. You're not really afraid. Your wife is the embodiment of my 8th sister, afraid she might run away. The six fairies' little mouth quickly wriggled a few times and said. Yes, little girl, I need to go back quickly. Okay, big brother, said the six fairies with a hint of disappointment. The two of them crossed the street at the fastest speed and entered Fugue Lane. On both sides of the alley are some grey and low old houses, which emit a sense of decay. The ground was covered with hard and slippery bluestone ash, and people made a crisp sound like hooves as they walked up, echoing in the cramped space for a long time. There were not many pedestrians coming and going in the alley, all bowing their heads and rushing along with a cold expression. A cat let out a whimper and silently swept over the courtyard wall, disappearing like a dream. Big brother, have you arrived yet? You've been walking around the corner for so long. It's like a maze. The 6 fairies panted heavily, sweating profusely as they followed behind Liancheng. Here we are, take a bend ahead. Liancheng gasped for breath. Pointing to a grey-white courtyard wall ahead, he said, a branch of a tree protruded from the top of the wall, swaying gently in the gentle breeze. The two quickly arrived at the gate of the courtyard, which was open like a city gate. Liancheng rushed in with one swift step, and the courtyard was empty and quiet. The gate was also open like a city gate, with a few colorful clothes hanging on a thin rope in front of the house. The wind blew and made a loud sound. Damn it! Liancheng called out, took 3 steps in 2 and rushed to the gate, shouting loudly, "Madam, madam, I'm back, madam." He shouted several times in a row, but there was no response inside. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. Liancheng rushed into the house anxiously and shouted, "Madam, are you there?" There is still no response. He rushed into the room again from the inside of the living room, feeling anxious and burning. There is no one inside. The quilt on the bed was scattered haphazardly, and a pillow fell on the pedal under the bed. Little girl, mother, she is gone. Big brother, why don't you search around? Maybe she went to the neighbor's house or went out on the street. The 6th fairy stood behind him, looking at her. My wife doesn't usually go out, right now. I'll search in the courtyard first, maybe she went to the restroom. At this point, Liancheng quickly turned around and rushed out of the room, rushed out of the living room, and arrived at the courtyard. He ran to the toilet in a hurry and shouted several times. There was no movement inside the toilet, but he didn't give up. He creaked the door and looked inside, a nauseating odor filled the air. Then, a group of green-headed flies flew out, and a few of them crashed into his face in fear. He frowned in disgust. Not at home, not in the yard, not in the restroom. Madam, you wouldn't really run away, would you? Liancheng looked mournful and grabbed his long hair fiercely with both hands. With a flick of his hand, a strand of long hair flew up and landed leisurely on the ground. If your wife really runs away, then she is 100% the 8 sisters and 8 fairies, said the 6 fairies with a sweat on her face. 8 sisters, 8 fairies, are you gloating? Liancheng widened his eyes and stared fiercely at the face of the 6 fairies, asking. Big brother, why should I gloat? After a pause, he comforted, maybe she went somewhere else, relatives and friends, back to her mother's house. Chapter 6. Sun Wengong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Liancheng said, little girl, don't leave in the courtyard. I'll go to my father-in-law's house to see if she has returned to her mother's house. How far is your father-in-law's house from here? 6 fairies stood tall and graceful in the courtyard, looking up her fair and tender face, and her slender eyelashes flickered. It's not too far, it's at the end of the alley. I'll go back as soon as I go. After speaking, he turned around and rushed out of the yard without looking back. Not long after, deep footsteps echoed outside the courtyard, and Liancheng returned. He walked up to the 6 fairies with a look of despair on his face. The 6 fairies immediately understood. Didn't you go back to your parents' house? No. Liancheng lowered his head in despair, looking like a prisoner sentenced to death. Did you go to your relative's house? The 6 fairies timidly glanced at him and asked. She never goes to relatives' houses. After speaking, she suddenly lifted her head and pounced, grabbing the hands of the 6 fairies with both hands. She stared at the blood-red eyes and shook the body of the 6 fairies. The wild beast roared, if the lady doesn't come back, you will be my wife, my lady. Do you know? What? Big brother, your wife has run away. Maybe she took a liking to that little white face and eloped with her. You can use it as a substitute, you can't think of it. The six fairies suddenly broke free from Lian Qingzhou's hands and spat at him, spitting on Lian Qingzhou's face like a drizzle of stars. Lian Qingzhou raised her right hand and gently wiped her face. Suddenly, she remembered something and rushed to the entrance of the courtyard. With a thump, she tightly closed the door. A cold smile flashed across the corners of the six fairies' mouths. Big brother, since I can float down from the heavenly palace, how can the small courtyard wall stop me? Upon hearing these words, Lian Qingzhou trembled and stumbled over. With a loud bang, he opened the courtyard door and lowered his head, saying in a low and slightly hoarse voice, "You go. Big brother, I won't leave for now. I believe eighth sister will come back." The sixth fairy sighed and walked to the well. "Big brother, could you pour a basin of well water and let me wash my face? I'm sweating and my body feels greasy." Lian Qingzhou walked to the well, drew a bucket of well water, and placed it next to the six fairies. He said angrily, "What if she doesn't come back? Didn't you just say she's the eight sisters and the eight fairies? Since she's a fairy, why did she come back? I'm not a palace here, except for the simple necessities of daily life. She has always been accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle, how can she accept it? It's okay to leave. Big brother, why are you still so sad, and desperate?" The six fairies gave him a deep glance. "No, little girl. I used to think she was my wife, Fu Yingying, and white tofu. I didn't expect she was really the eight immortals, but I don't understand until I die. So Fu Yingying, my wife, went there again. Did she turn into smoke and ashes?" Lian Qingzhou pounded his chest and feet. Not long after Lian Qingzhou left, the eight immortals floated out of their home leisurely. The eight immortals leisurely arrived on the street. The prosperity of the marketplace is vastly different from that of the heavenly palace. The bustling market is full of smoke, fire, and the smell of firewood and rice. Golden deep fried dough sticks, by Xuan steamed buns, steaming bean curd jelly served with sauce, egg and scallion noodles, beef offal, ribs noodles, green bean congee, shredded pork and green pepper noodles, etc. The hawker's voice was loud and clear, echoing the streets and alleys for a long time. On the street, people come and go by car, driving donkeys, riding horses, shouldering, carrying, walking in the heavenly palace is not bustling, except for a few heavenly soldiers and generals, only a few little fairies with flowing clothes. What else can there be? No wonder the seven immortals, seventh sister, descended to the mortal world and married Dong Yong, leaving behind a legend that has been passed down in the heavenly palace for several years. In a word, there is still much joy in the human world, and the heavenly palace is too lonely. The eight immortals arrived at the small noodle shop, slowly sat down, ordered a bowl of lamb noodles to eat, and touched her pocket, but it was broken and there were no copper coins or broken silver. Just now, the shopkeeper greeted him with a smile and suddenly changed his face to a cold one. The eight immortals stood awkwardly at the dining table. The young master at the nearby table saw her and quickly came over with a smile, saying, "This young lady may have forgotten to bring some silver when she went out. You don't have to make things difficult for her, the shopkeeper. I'll give it to her." After speaking confidently, he took out a few won from his pocket and gently handed it to the shop assistant. The eight immortals blushed and said thank you. The young master said, "My surname is Sun, my son is Wengong. Miss, whose surname is the household name?" The eight fairies slowly lowered their heads. "The little woman's name is Eight Immortals and she comes from the heavenly palace." Sun Wengong looked at the eight immortals with half faith and half doubt. "Sun Gongzi, why are you looking at me like this?" I was momentarily stunned. Sun Wengong only then realized that he had made a mistake and smiled apologetically. "Sun Gongzi, I was originally a heavenly being." After speaking, he drifted away. Sun Wengong quickly chased after him and loudly said, 8 fairies, you are a heavenly being, and so am I. Sun Wengong stood on the bustling street, looking around and seeing nothing. The wind swept up dust and fallen leaves on the ground, fluttering in the sky. He let out a sigh of disappointment and covered his eyes with his hand to block the foggy dust. At noon, on the outskirts of the town, the number of people burning incense and worshipping Buddha in the Tudi temple is gradually decreasing. The 8 immortals walked over and lit incense sticks. Cigarettes curled upwards, and Yu reading slowly dispersed. The air was filled with a faint scent of sandalwood. The 8 immortals bowed a few times to the earthly gods on the ground. Immediately, a wisp of green smoke rose, and the figure of the earth god appeared. Upon seeing the 8 immortals, Tu Pai Shan quickly knelt down with a thud, his head pounding garlic, and said, I don't know if the 8th princess has arrived. I apologize for any inconvenience caused by the little god's departure. The 8 immortals said indifferently, Earth god, get up quickly. I believe you have heard that there has been a coup in the heavenly palace, and Father Emperor has been placed under house arrest. My brothers and sisters, including the Empress Dowager and Empress Dowager, are all uncertain of their lives and whereabouts. As the 8th princess, I am exiled here. Please take good care of me. 8th princess, there has been a coup in the heavenly palace, and the little god has some knowledge. You don't have to worry. These rebels are autumn grasshoppers, and they won't be jumping for long. The land god slowly got up from the ground, dusted his knees, and said calmly, Earth god, I borrow your auspicious words. The 8 fairies twitched their lips. Just now, while eating noodles in the town's restaurant, I met a graceful young master with an elegant temperament. He paid for the noodles and said he was also a celestial being. I didn't know which immortal he was at the moment. Earth god, can you know? The 8 immortals sang her slender eyebrows and looked at the earth god, her face full of vicissitudes. The earth god let out a long sigh. This young master's name is Sun Wengong. He is the eldest son of the old minister Sun Bigong. Prime Minister Bigong has 3 sons, 2 of whom are stationed on the border, and the eldest son is by his father's side. He is the Shangshu, which is divided into 6 parts. Punishment, history, etiquette, military, labor, and household. The father and son hold high positions and are inevitably envied by petty people. After the coup, Bigong would rather die than surrender. Sun Wengong managed to escape from the palace and was exiled to the mortal world. The earth god remained silent and said, They are both fallen people from the ends of the earth. No wonder he said he is also a heavenly being. Chapter 7. Sisters Meet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As he was speaking, the sound of heavy footsteps came from behind. The earth god said, Sun Gongzi is here, go and meet him. The 8 immortals asked, Has Sun Gongzi come to visit you? Visited, said the earth god. The 8 immortals turned around. Upon seeing it, Sun Wengong's eyes immediately flashed with surprise. 8 fairies, we have met again. Do we still have fate? Oh, earth god, you are also here. The earth god bowed with both hands and said, I have seen Lord Sun before. God of the land, don't call me Lord Sunday. A phoenix with fallen feathers is better than a chicken, Sun Gongfu joked to himself. 8th princess, Sun Gongzi, you two chat slowly. Shaoshan said goodbye. As soon as the words finished, a green smoke rose and then disappeared. I didn't expect Princess 8 to also come to pay respects to the earth god. May I ask him to bless you with peace? He said again, I have seen Princess 8 before. I was blind in town just now, and I hope Princess 8 can understand. Sun Wengong bowed with both hands. Sun Gongzi, haven't you also paid respects to the earth god? Aren't you also asking him to bless you? Let's do the same for each other. The 8 immortals frowned and smiled. After a while, he asked with concern, how is Prime Minister Sun doing now? Like your father's emperor, he was placed under house arrest by a group of bandits crossing his legs under the guidance of the Supreme Lord. Sun Wengong furrowed his brow and said with some anxiety. They won't kill your Prime Minister son, will they? They won't kill your father, will they? The 8 immortals asked with concern. Who knows about this? If your younger brother, General Sun Wushan-su, finds out about this coup, they will definitely come from the border to rescue you, save your father, and save all the loyal ministers who have been detained by the rebels. The 8 fairies cast their anxious eyes into the vast distance. These rebels have surrounded the heavenly palace, making it impossible for even mosquitoes and flies to fly out. How can the news spread? Sun Wengong said with a dejected expression. We are now in the mortal world, do we still have a chance to go back? The 8 fairies asked as they looked at Sun Wengong's face. Opportunities are slim, but we must strive and work hard, Sun Wengong comforted. How to fight, work hard, the angel broke off its wings, what should it take to fly? The 8 fairies said dejectedly. But the broken wings can be repaired. Sun Gongzi, are you quite confident? Yes, Princess 8, the wings can be broken, but faith and hope cannot be broken. Li Wengong swept away his previous decadence. After pausing for a moment, she asked again, 8th Princess, aren't you the Lady of Liancheng State, a scholar in Fugui Lane? Yes, it's Lady Liancheng, but I don't want to admit it. I'm not willing to accept it. She frowned and asked with wide eyes, aren't you also the Sun.in.law of Sun Yuanwei and the husband of Sun Jinju at the end of Fugui Alley? This is called being a fallen person from all over the world. Why did you ever meet before? The 8 fairies sighed faintly. Thinking of something else, he said, young Master Li, I have gone back, otherwise even the scholar would think I have run away. 8th Princess, can I see you off? Why are you so polite? A faint smile appeared at the corner of the 8 immortals' mouth. 8th Princess, I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me. When I was in the palace, I had a crush on you and never had the courage to confide in you. Now I finally have the opportunity, but things have changed and time has changed. You have become someone else's wife, and I have become Miss Sun's husband after waking up. I didn't even dare to accept it at that time, but now I must accept it. Facing it. What is the meaning of worldly love? Sun Wengong spoke with a tone of melancholy and sadness. Upon hearing these words, the 8 immortals were both shocked and surprised. She gave Sun Wengong a deep glance. Sun Gongzi, you were in the palace at that time. You liked me too much, and I couldn't even count them with my fingers. If you were to follow the order, you might have reached the hundreds. The two walked shoulder to shoulder towards the town. Occasionally, a few pedestrians and carriages hurriedly passed by on the official road, rolling up smoke like mist of dust that spread and dissipated for a long time. 8th Princess, I just wanted to ask you, have you ever had a good impression of me? Sun Wengong turned his face and gave a mournful smile. I've seen too many handsome guys before. I'm sorry about you, Sun Gongzi. Not to mention, I don't even have a good impression of you. Sun Gongzi, although you are tall and handsome, have a good speech, an elegant temperament, hold an important position, and hold a prominent position, I can only apologize. The 8 fairies wriggled their small mouths a few times, and their long hair at the back of their head floated slightly due to their movement. I'm sorry, I can't talk about it. After all, you don't owe me anything. Sun Wengong turned his face and gazed at the gray-white official road. A few crows were croaking on the roadside branches. The sun has gradually set in the west. When will the sunset set and the flowers fall helplessly? There are too many regrets in life. I never expected that we would meet in such a unique way. Sun Wengong's heart was filled with melancholy and sadness. Liancheng walked back and forth in the courtyard, while the 6 fairies sat at the entrance with wooden chairs, their gaze fixed on Liancheng for a moment, and then turned to the outside of the courtyard. The gentle breeze blew the flowers, plants, and trees in the courtyard, making a soft rustling sound. Liancheng frowned as he walked and murmured to himself, "Madam, there you are. The sun is about to set." Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net, please come back quickly. Just as he was speaking, there was a sound of footsteps outside the courtyard. Liancheng was startled, his body trembled, and he couldn't help but stop and look towards the entrance of the courtyard. At this moment, the sound of footsteps had reached the door, and a familiar figure appeared. "Madam, you finally came back. Where did you go? I'm so anxious. I searched the entire Fugue lane but didn't find you. Madam, where did you go?" Liancheng pounced with surprise and excitement on his face, his eyes shining brightly. "Big brother, I just went to a local temple outside the town and burned a pillar of incense. Do you think I ran away?" After speaking, he looked up and said, "Sister Lu, are you really Sister Lu? Why are you here? Oh my God! Why does it seem like you're dreaming?" The 8 immortals couldn't believe it. She rubbed her eyes hard and then fixed her gaze. It was not bad, it was sixth sister, absolutely true. She bypassed Liancheng, feeling extremely surprised and excitedly rushed over. "Eighth sister. Sixth sister." The sisters hugged each other tightly, their faces pressed against each other's faces, and tears poured out of their eyes. "Sister Lu, isn't this a dream? Sister Lu, this is not a dream. If you don't believe it, pinch your arm and it hurts, it proves that this is not a dream." Sister Lu raised her face slightly, tears welled up in her eyes once again. The 8 immortals immediately released her left hand and pinched her arm fiercely, causing a sharp pain to quickly surge into her heart. "Sister Lu, this is indeed not a dream, it hurts." The 8 fairies almost screamed in excitement. Liancheng looked at the sisters, and suddenly a complex emotion came into his heart. The sun has already set, and dusk is enveloping us. Come in and say it, right? Liancheng broke his silence. Chapter 8. King Lear. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 9. Wind and Fire Wheel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 10. Deyue Tower. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Half a month has passed. There is still no news, and King Lear is somewhat anxious. He comes out of a castle in the air. Like a leaf falling on the ground, a skybird, a fairy bird in the sky, like a human postman, swooped down from the air and landed on King Lear's shoulder without tilting. The skybird first called out and said in a crisp voice, "I have seen King Lear." King Lear turned his head, lifted his right hand to take off the letter paper tied to his paw, and gently stroked the feathers of the heavenly bird with his left hand. The heavenly bird chirped again, spread its wings, and flew away, quickly disappearing into the vast sky. The sun is like a shining circle hanging in the sky, surrounded by large cotton fluff white clouds. The gentle breeze blows, and the white clouds sway leisurely. King Lear slowly unfolded the letter. The letter was written by King Totally, who repeatedly emphasized that the 8 fairies and Sun Wengong were in the wealthy county town. He urged King Lear and other heavenly generals not to lose heart and to continue to work hard. What's the use of emphasizing? The key is that so far I haven't even seen a ghost. King Lear stood there and muttered to himself, the wind is strong, causing the crops in the suburbs to fall to one side. The trees and branches on both sides of the road make a wave-like noise, and the dust, fallen leaves, and grass debris on the ground are swept up by the wind, flying all over the sky. A few sparrows are chirping in the tree trunks. Jixiang Road in the county town. There are more guests coming and going than usual, and cars and horses are parked in a small square on the roadside. Today is the annual poetry festival. The host is a renowned poet and immortal. The participants in the poetry competition are all local scholars, as well as amateur authors. The competition will be held on the third floor of Deyue building. There is a huge golden plaque hanging on the high lintel, shining brightly in the sunlight. There are 8 big characters on the plaque: tea as a guest, poetry as a friend. At the entrance of Deyue Tower, literati and scholars come and go in an endless stream, bustling and bustling. Li Erwang slowly arrived at Jixiang Road from Jihe Road, and just now he had a bowl of pork rib noodles in a small shop. As he was about to reach the end of Jixiang Road, he saw many carriages and sedan chairs parked by the Moon Tower Square, as well as many people. Ask the pedestrians on the roadside. The pedestrian smiled and said, "Sir, are you from out of town? You don't even know what day it is today." King Lear shook his head in confusion and asked, "Big brother, what day is today?" The pedestrian said, "Today is a poetry festival. Local, out of town, and even literati and poets from the capital have come to participate in the festival. This is an annual poetry festival, and each poet is only allowed to bring 5 poems to participate. 8 judges will make initial evaluations, and then the top poet, the immortal, will decide who will be the champion." "Oh, I see, thank you, big brother," said King Lear. "No need to thank you," the person said before leaving. King Lear frowned and thought for a moment, then quickly searched for a remote place, transformed into a scholar, carrying a stack of poems in his arms, and strode towards the Moon Tower. After breakfast, Liancheng said to them, "I'm going to Deyue Tower to participate in a poetry competition today. Sixth sister, madam, would you too be willing to accompany me?" For safety reasons, the 6 fairies said without hesitation, "Brother.in.law, it's better for us not to go to such an elegant activity. There are also talented women participating." Liancheng held a stack of poetry manuscripts in his arms and looked at them with both hands embracing his chest, while they were drying clothes in the courtyard. A twisted string was hung with colorful clothes, and when the wind blew, the originally wrinkled clothes stretched out like a smile, making a sound of slapping. The sun shone brightly in the courtyard, and a few dragonflies flew back and forth in the air. Apart from flying back and forth, what else could they do? The gardenia in the corner of the courtyard wall bloomed, dazzling white, and the air was filled with a strong floral fragrance. "Xianggong, why don't you go quickly? We won't join in this fun anymore," the 8 immortals politely declined. "Okay, since you two don't want to join in this fun, then forget it. Brother-in-law, I hope you can come to a champion's home. Sister Lu, I borrow your auspicious words." Liancheng turned around and walked out of the yard. It's less than 2 or 3 miles away from Fugue Lane to Jixiang Road. Liancheng quickly arrived at Deyue Tower. He saw Wu Xiuzai wandering around at the gate, and Liancheng knew that Wu Xiuzai was waiting for him. He quickened his pace and walked over. Wu Xiuzai saw Liancheng walking towards him and quickly welcomed him, saying, "I thought you weren't coming. Until now." Liancheng said, "It's impossible not to come. I've made an appointment with you, so can we break it?" "All right, let's go upstairs quickly. That group of old scholars are reviewing the poetry manuscript, and it's too late. Their review has ended. Isn't it a waste of time for us to come here? This is a good opportunity to show our talents, and good opportunities are rare to come by." Wu Xiuzai hurriedly urged. "I heard that there are a lot of literati participating in the poetry competition this year, and many new talents and experts from the poetry industry have come from the capital, twice as many as in previous years. It seems that the competition for poetry this year is particularly fierce, reaching a level of incandescence. Wu, I'm worried now that my poetry won't even pass the preliminary round easily." Liancheng said with concern as he walked, his thick and short eyebrows twisted into knots. "Brother Lian, why don't you be so insecure? Your poetry is better than mine, and you lack confidence. So why don't I go up to the third floor and quickly find a remote place to take out the poetry manuscript in my arms and throw it away? The two of them walked through the living room below and went up to the second floor, heading straight to the third floor. The third floor of Deyue building. Setting up dozens of tables, chairs, and stools, big and small, long and short, is still not enough. There are too many literati and scholars coming, almost full. Most of them could only stand there, their eyes eagerly gazing at the judges with gray hair, wrinkles on their faces, and cloudy eyes. 8 judges who were both virtuous and talented sat in a row. The scholars first hand over their poetry drafts one by one in order, respectfully placing them next to the judges, and then leave. The judges slowly opened the poetry manuscript, looking serious and serious. Lian Qingzhou and Wu Xiucai went up to the third floor and stood at the back. Soon it was Liancheng State's turn. Following him was Wu Xiucai, who gently poked him in the waist and whispered, "Brother Lian, why are you still so stunned? Quickly take out the poetry manuscript and hand it to the judges." Lian Qingzhou nodded and quickly took out a stack of poems with body temperature from his arms. He gently placed them next to the judge. The judge looked at Lian Qingzhou expressionlessly, then took the poem from Lian Zhou's hand. After opening it expressionlessly, he looked at it expressionlessly. Lian Qingzhou turned around and retreated, frowning in disgust. He thought to himself, this is like a sacred poetry competition, but more like a bustling vegetable market. The sound of talking, footsteps, coughing, and even loud spitting and farting is so piercing and annoying.